Welcome into the 24/7 Sports YouTube page alongside our national college football analysts, Carl Reed and Smoke Dixon. I am Emily Proud, and we are going to get into maybe some deeper discussions on some of the biggest headlines in the world of college football, and none bigger than what's happening down in Tuscaloosa. Over 20 players have hit the transfer portal, 2 5-stars from last year's #1 class, their top wide receiver in Isaiah Bond. And yet the 30-day window, guys, is still open. So I'll start with you, Carl. What could Alabama and or Kalen DeBoer have done differently to limit the blow of Saban's retirement?
I don't think they could have done anything differently. This is a situation where all those players chose to go to the University of Alabama to play for Nick Saban, who's the greatest college football coach of all time. There are not a lot of relationships between Coach DeBoer and guys that are from that part of the country. And so I think that anytime you have coaching transition, and you're seeing it with every single job, guys are leaving every time a coach leaves. But with a guy like Nick Saban leaving, it just intensifies the situation and it makes the emotions even higher.
Well, Carl, I'm along with you as well with that comment. At the end of the day, I don't think Alabama could have done anything. The current landscape that we're in right now in college football is all transactional. It's all about the money. Who's getting the best NIL deal. And when you have Coach Saban sitting at the top of the table, there's sometimes you get a Saban discount. And I think a lot of those guys that are at Alabama took a Saban discount. Now Coach Saban steps away. I don't think there's a discount anymore. I think it's all off the table and everybody else is just going for the best deal for them moving forward.
I don't mean this next question on an indictment from Kalen DeBoer and his ability to keep this roster together, but how much of the blame is fair to put on this hire of Kalen DeBoer? Could any of this been lessened, Carl, by hiring somebody else, or is it just strictly it was going to happen no matter who they brought in to replace the GOAT?
I don't think that you could have hired anybody that would have lessened the blow. And I know there's some other names that people like more than Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer is a good football coach. He's won everywhere he went. He just took Washington to the national title game where they lost to Michigan. But when you lose Nick Saban, that is an impact that nobody can deal with and nobody can comprehend. The only thing that I would say that Alabama could have done differently is maybe if this would have happened earlier, say if Coach Saban would have retired right after they lost to Michigan, then maybe you would have had more time to kind of get some things together. Because so the timing is bad. Schools are starting everywhere right now. And so I don't know where Alabama really can replace the players that they're losing from because the transfer portal situation. But from a standpoint of you're going to always have a disagreement when a coach is hired. Who takes over for Nick Saban? It's really a very, very short list of names that could do that.
Well, Carl, you know what? I'm going to jump back into my GM spot. And I don't think college football truly understand what they're going through. They're operating in a professional landscape right now, but they aren't doing things that professionals would do. Case in point, I think if Coach Saban was going to retire 2 months ago, you set up a plan in terms of making sure those players that are inside of your building understand what's going to happen moving forward. And you get ahead of this train instead of allowing the train to run you over. Say Caleb Downs. You sit down with that young man and say, hey, this is what's going to happen, and we have a deal set up for you to stay here. And all the players that you want there, you set that deal up. You call whoever's representing them, if they're a street agent, their parents, or themselves, and you handle that. But if you go into this amateur show of just allowing everybody to just go wherever they want to go, just because you didn't have a plan in place, this is what's going to happen. So I believe if they did have a plan in place and understood exactly who they wanted, when they wanted, and how much they wanted to pay each player, this jumping into the portal and just breaking up of the team, I don't think it would happen at this alarming rate.
I think something that we're not looking at either, everybody blames it on the hire, but Alabama also has not stepped up to spend NIL money from a collective standpoint at the rate that some of the other schools are doing. And so guys are willing, like Smoke said at the beginning of this segment, to play for a cheaper price to play for Nick Saban. But when you take him out of the equation, things change. And so I don't think it's just as much about the coaching hire. It's also the fact some guys are going to double and triple their money also by going to other schools. You consider Caleb Downs down, But if you can't get in the ballpark with him from an NIL standpoint, it's still going to be incredibly difficult to hold on to him.
Yeah, I mean, Smoke mentioned that Saban discount. It is a very real thing, and that a lot of these players maybe sacrificed taking the top dollar just so they could play under a guy like Nick Saban. But something else you mentioned, Smoke, that I think is kind of interesting is this kind of striking the right balance with this player-coach freedom, because it's not just Alabama. I think we're keeping close eye on them because, well, it's Alabama, and they have the best roster in the sport. So anytime a player from the Crimson Tide enters the portal, it's automatically going to be one of the top guys available. But we're seeing this happening at Washington, at Arizona. Other schools going through coaching changes are also seeing a lot of players hit the transfer portal. So, Smoke, I'll ask you this. How do you kind of strike that perfect balance of player-coach freedom while also not leaving a program in total disarray during a coaching change?
Well, I don't think anything could be perfect, but I think the NCAA and most schools need to set up a personnel department, a true personnel department, and allow a third party to come in to handle the contracts, because that's what we're looking at right now. And also get a salary cap. So once each school has a salary cap and you have someone managing it, then each player is binded by that contract to stay, just like a coach should. So I think if we start going into the landscape of making sure this thing looks like what it is right now, a professional, amateur professional team at the end of the day, because the way that we're moving right now, we're saying these kids are amateurs, but they're also getting paid. And they're also leaving whenever they feel like it. So now you can't even be a true fan or even a student athlete because they're somewhat professional but operate in the amateur world. So setting up this department with each school, I think you could get a handle on the situation a little bit better.
Everybody's comparing this to the National Football League and saying that college sports has been professionalized. But this is not how the National Football League conducts its business. You can't get up and switch teams anytime you feel like it. There's contracts. There's windows. There's certain things you can and cannot do. College football right now, there are no rules. There are no rules really to anything. And so in that case, what they're doing is not an NFL model. It's something that nobody has control of. And until somebody does something, the NCAA, the conferences, this is the model that you have to deal with, and may the best man win.
Yeah, Carl, I'm with you. As soon as the faster they get to the setting up this thing like a professional ran organization, even if it's just a minor league of the NFL with a salary cap, contracts, binded contracts, I think we're going to get into this wild, wild west of transfer portal windows.
Yeah, I love that you make the comparison to the NFL, because if anything, in the National Football League, it's the opposite. If you're going through a coaching change, that means you're probably drafting pretty high. Maybe you have some open money to spend on the cap. So it's interesting. I want to make the comparison, though, to another professional sport in Major League Baseball, in that you have these tiers, right? You have single A, double A, triple A, and then, of course, the major leagues. We're kind of seeing similarities with that when it comes to the coaching profession. I mean, Saban's retirement has created this insane trickle-down effect that 3 group of 5 jobs all of a sudden became available after he retired. So, Carl, from a coach's perspective, financially, we know the money is better when you make that jump to the Power 5. But what's the better career move? Is it leading a lower level program, or is it moving into the power ranks at whatever capacity?
It all depends on what you want to do and who you are as a person and the kind of program that you're leading at the group of 5 level. With NIL money in play in the transfer portal, some group of 5 coaches, they just can't keep up. There are a group of 5 players who also want to get paid. And so the group of 5 schools have no collectives for the most part. They have no way of being able to keep up financially. So a lot of those coaches are forced with the decision to take Power 5 assistant jobs, not only because of the money, so they can be competitive. Group of 5 right now is probably hurting more than any level of college football, because from a financial standpoint, they cannot afford to pay players.
Well, Carl, listen, I'm jumping straight into it. No, I'm not even touching my feet into that G5 stuff. I'm going straight to the money because I'm doing the same thing that the players are doing. As a coach, you understand that you probably only have a 5 to 10 year window of you maximizing your full contracts of what you can possibly get. And right now, everything's hot. So at the end of the day, just like you saw down in Tuscaloosa, a lot of these coaches are being ran by agencies. I could have easily told anybody it would have been a CAA client that was going to get that Alabama job because one of the people that you saw walking in that building was Jimmy Sexton. So from the coaching standpoint, I think this thing is getting out of hand as well too, because a lot of these coaches in these places are being ran by big time agencies. And a lot of these coaches aren't qualified to get these jobs, but their agencies are controlling the ADs, the general managers, assistant coaches, and the head coaches. So they're just placing a lot of these guys.
Yeah, the way that I kind of phrased that question was more so towards a resume building standpoint. What can propel you to get that eventual head coaching position at a power level? But from just a quality of life standpoint, I think that this has been widely discussed over the last few years, just how burnt out a lot of these coaches are, how overworked they are. Smoke, I know we've had this conversation many times. What's the better job? Leading a group of 5 program as a head coach, or potentially being a positional coach or coordinator at the power level, Smoke?
I mean, at the end of the day, they're all the same because you're recruiting at 365 and you have the same issues. If you're at a group of 5 head coach, you just don't have the finances in order to keep your players around. And if you're one of the top 5 program assistant coaches, you have the same issues as well too. So it's either A, you want to run your own show or be a part of your own show. But the biggest issue and the problem is there's no rules to the show that we're all playing or this game that we're playing. It's almost when you wake up the next morning, you're finding out what's going to happen the next day. So I think both of them are the same thing at the end of the day. It's just what's lesser evil do you want to battle?
What's a better job, group of 5 head coach or SEC, Big Ten, Power 5 assistant coach? That's debatable depending on the personality. But Smoke's hit it. Football is 365. It's every single day, every hour. It's getting to the office at 5 and leaving at 11. It doesn't matter if you're the head coach, the assistant coach. It doesn't matter if you're the strength coach. It doesn't matter if you're a GA. When you sign up to be part of college football in the machine, you are on the clock every single second of every single day. So it's up to you to decide what you want your workload to be in terms of your responsibility level. Head coach has to be responsible for everything. Position coach has to be responsible for one room of guys. And so that just depends. But a lot of times too, Power 5 schools, they can put that salary level for you so high that it'll trump the salary that you're making as a group of 5 head coach.
It makes that machine a little bit more worth it. Along those same lines, when it comes to the financial side of things, I am in no position to tell people to take money out of their wallets or to take certain decisions. But I will say Jedd Fisch does not have many supporters in the state of Arizona right now. Wildcat fans, guys, they're calling him maybe hypocritical when he publicly said that he was happy and didn't plan on leaving, and then, of course, left for the Washington job. But, Carl, how fair is that criticism?
You know, life isn't fair, Emily. But one thing I will say is this. You know, when you think about what Jedd Fisch said, and then you go back in terms of other coaches who have said they're staying or they're happy, and then they end up leaving, I think what people are getting lost is we want people to care about other people more than they care about themselves. And that's a life thing. A head coach has an opportunity to make life-changing money for his family, double his salary, better his situation. The players are having an opportunity to make their financial situation better. And ultimately what we're all asking them to do is we want you to care about the school more than you care about yourself. We want you to care about the town more than you care about yourself. If you're a player, I want you to care more about the coach and the program more than you care about yourself. If you're the coach, I want you to care about the kids in the school and the community more than you care about yourself. But most people sitting at home today, they don't care about anybody more than they care about themselves.
Well, Carl, you know what? I think you said it best. But at the end of the day, the way that we're looking at this thing is at some point, we want this to be a business. At some point, we want this to be a caring relationship of yesteryear coaching or a relationship that coaches to have with players. This is a business right now, and it's always been a business. Right? When Coach Saban left Miami, he told the Dolphins, I'm not going anywhere. He left them with Alabama. At the end of the day, when you see a coach, whatever they say at that moment is what you have to believe. Because whoever drums up the next contract, they're going to leave for the next best job. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. So I get what coach had to say at that point, because probably that was his truth at that point. But at the end of the day, when those M's go up and you can create a better situation for yourself and your family, you're going to take that job. And it also opens up the next job for somebody else. So that's just the way that this musical carousel and the musical chair of coaching and athletic works.
Smoke, you're absolutely right. What they're saying when they're asked their questions is what they have to say, because in that moment, there's no guarantee that they're going to get the job that everybody's inquiring about. But, in this business, and they should be looking to advance, because money talks and BS runs a marathon. And you have to set yourself up financially. Once you made it about the money, once you made it about the business part of that, you have to be able to deal with it. And administrators have to be ready to hire a new coach at all times. Coaches have to be ready to flip their roster at all times. And that's just part of the job now. And the guys that are continuing to try to hold on to yesterday are going to get left behind in the way that the business is going right now.
Yeah, it's a tough business. I love the way that you phrase it, though, Carl, is there's a fun juxtaposition of the fan bases who care so much. I mean, we have a saying among Tennessee fans that you bleed orange. It absolutely has to be every part of your being, but it's not the same nowadays when it comes to coaches and players, and you can't expect that level of fanatic among the coaches and players. And so we're seeing kind of this interesting situation where some people are taking it personally, but as you both laid out perfectly, it is certainly a business. So from your standpoint, when it comes to the business of college football, put yourself in the shoes of a coach coming into a new program, like a Kalen DeBoer, like a Jedd Fisch, like a Brent Brennan. What's your message to the players currently on the roster as you are doing your best to try to hold it together? We'll start with you, Smoke.
Well, the first thing you got to do is just ask for time, because time's going to build the relationships that you want. And just give me an opportunity to prove myself to you, because I know I didn't recruit you. Most of you guys don't know me because I'm coming from somewhere that you guys probably never watched unless you watch a national championship game. So just give me time, and I'll make sure that you understand that I am the right coach. But a lot of the things that people are trying to do is trying to rush the judgment and don't allow themselves that time to build those relationships. Because like I said, every time you're going to get a change, there's no reason for you to run. Sit back, relax, give some time, and everything typically works out for the best.
You have to sit in the locker room with your team or in the meeting room, and you have to say, listen to this. After the coaching change happens, after everybody gets their money and negotiates their deal, we're all here to do one thing, and that's play and coach football. And all these guys want to be great football players. It's not as much about culture anymore. It's not as much about the relationships. But when you get on the grass and you're coaching football and you're trying to get the best out of individual players, you got to tell them, we may not be here for a long time. We're here for a good time. And you have to really lock in to the moment and not worry as much about the future, because football right now is just up in your face, but we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So you just have to focus on being the best you can today.
I love it. I'm sold. If I'm on your roster, guys, I'm staying put. Thank you both so much for the great discussion. As always, you can check out more of their work on the 24/7 Sports YouTube page. Highly recommend you give this video a like, and of course, make sure that you are subscribed to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.